I'm not going to be defined by any type of systematic rules. He lived out of those bounds, and he was a liberated person for that. I mean, he stepped a little too far. He got a little too full of himself, literally, and he ended up dying for that. Now, D, thus, all accomplishments are a consequence of providence, right? Anything that you do is a consequence of this external divine inspiration, if you will, which exacerbates a state of profound psychological egoism, right, among a community of believers. So, for example, the belief that God speaks, the belief, I don't want to get political, but, you know, especially in contemporary American politics, there's a belief that God speaks directly to political leaders and governs their decisions and actions in office, right? Listen, it's not me, right? It's not the policy that I'm putting forward for engaging in battle or retreating or doing this or making budget concerns. It's the divine. And I'm not knocking people's religious beliefs. I'm definitely not, right? I'm a pretty open-minded dude. But the point that you don't want to take accountability for the act, whatever act might be, is one thing. When that person rises in power, in a very, very literal sense, and then designates that power into the transcendent realm and says that it's not me acting, it's the divine, and the decisions that this individual human being makes is so weighted because he or she has risen to so much power that it's going to affect the lives of millions, well, now that's problematic, because everyone that you're making decisions on behalf of will probably not share the same religious beliefs that you do. So it's one thing if you in the privacy of your own home make a decision and that decision is informed by the divine. Sure. If you rise to a position of power, it's a pretty significant position, it doesn't even have to be that significant, but you rise to that level of power, and then your decisions are now informed by a Godhead, that's a whole bag of worms. That's going to cause a lot of tension. It's going to cause a lot of tension. And it's not for good or for bad, it's just going to cause tension. Why? Because everyone doesn't conform to that system of beliefs. And if you are basing your decisions on that sort of God is in my ear argument, what ends up happening is, from a Nietzschean standpoint, is an individual like that is so removed from his or her own conception of self, his or her own strength in identity, that they can't stand alone to assume the responsibility to make a decision. Because it wasn't my decision, really. The decision, as hokey as it sounds, if the person genuinely believes that it wasn't his decision to go to war to make this, you know, budgetary claim, or it wasn't her decision to go to war to make this budgetary blah, 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 it was God's decision, well, there's a sense in which accountability is difficult. Right? Well, they actually believe that God told them. I mean, I might not believe that. You might not believe that. Maybe you do believe that. But they actually believe that God told them. So how can you really, you know, they believe it was God. I don't believe that. But then you have this back and forth. There is no right answer to this argument. It just goes on forever. Then you start talking about the existence of God. And then you're on some other stuff, but the real problem is still there. Right? The whole point for Nietzsche is that the individual has to stand outside of this herd. Right? You have to stand outside of the herd precisely to take accountability. When I come up and I do these lectures and I prepare for these lectures, I've done lectures and I've been off on some things. I've confused a few points. I've done pretty sick amount of logic on my YouTube channel, and I risk missing a number. I risk missing a symbolization, and people are watching. I have to be accountable. I have to be accountable to whom? To you. I have to be accountable to you. Dr. Campbell, that wasn't right. I put myself, every time I do these videos, at the mercy of all of you, because everyone's not necessarily waiting for me to screw up, but everyone's, hey, that was right or that was wrong. But I take that. That's what I want. It actually makes me stronger, right? But I recognize me, because I'm a good Nietzschean. I recognize that I have to assume accountability. I have to make the decisions. I'm the person that's informing this lecture series. No one else. I am. Now, you guys are definitely motivating me to continue and to go as far as I've gone already. There's no question about that, and I'm in your absolute debt for all the feedback and all the good energy that I get from you guys. This is it's like crack for me. But yeah, you know, the political stuff just it's a little out there for me. Okay, so next assumed moral preconditions for the social, right? So remember, as we were talking about the social construction of what, now I'm really going to flesh out sort of these assumed moral preconditions for the social. For the social, right? And emphasis here is on the preconditions,